Well, good morning, everybody. Sort of a gloomy morning. I wanted to show you the fall colors. It's Fall has finally hit here in central Kentucky. Our flowers are still blooming. We haven't had a frost yet, but the trees are getting pretty, and thought I'd shoot this out on the deck. It's going to be sort of a different video for me this morning. Um, I was up in Ohio a couple weeks ago for my mom's memorial service. She passed away at the age of 92, and I went down to my old neighborhood where I grew up, and I got lucky enough to see a train go by. Now, one train isn't long enough to have a video about. It's a pretty cool train. So I'm going to splice in some other stuff in there about why I'm interested in trains or how I got interested in trains. Some of you might think it's interesting. If not, just fast forward to the train because it is a cool train. But I'll sort of explain at the end why I do what I do, why I model what I model. So, so let's go on and see some of my history. My grandfather, who was living in Omega, Ohio, with his family, decided he was on the road a lot. So he decided that he wanted to find a position where he didn't have to travel quite as much for the railroad. So when this job was posted in Chillicothe in 1938, he applied and was accepted. So he moved his family, of course including my mom, to a company house on 7th Street in Chillicothe. This is my mom, probably in the mid-40s, some glamour shots she took to send to my dad when he was in the Navy. They weren't married yet, but they're standing in the front yard of the house, and the overpass, or the underpass that I'm going to show you in the train video is in the background. So after my parents got married, my mom had been living in the house at the top of the Blue Circle, but eventually they moved to a house on the corner, or close to the corner of Sugar and McKellar at the bottom of the circle, and this is where I grew up. And so I had a front row seat to hundreds of N&W trains, probably 20 or 30 a day growing up. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, why doesn't he model the N&W? Well, I do, actually. If you've seen my Garden Railroad videos, everything on the Garden Railroad is N&W. But when I went inside for my N-scale, I just didn't want to model the same thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, the N&W in Chillicothe was just a run-through operation. Really, the only customer they had of any consequence was the paper company. But I didn't really find that interesting. I'm not, when I build a model railroad, I'm not a rail fan. I like to operate the trains and do the switching and everything. So right up the street, 2 or 3 blocks away, where the N&W crossed the B&O, this was a division point for the B&O, Ohio Division. And so they had an engine terminal and a roundhouse and turntable, and they did local switching and everything. So that's why I decided to model the chassis system on my N-scale layout. N&W is always going to be my favorite railroad. I have family ties to it. Not only my grandfather, but my uncle worked for the N&W as a freight agent. I have a lot of their memorabilia. So, N&W is always going to be my favorite railroad. There's just no doubt about it. But when it comes to modeling, the chassis, to me, gives a lot more variety. It's a lot more interesting than just having the trains loop around. And that's just my theory about model railroading. There's nothing wrong with having trains loop around. I love watching model trains. If you've ever been to Intertrainment Junction in Cincinnati, man, it's fantastic. Just watch those trains running. It's all computer controlled. So I highly recommend you going there. But I just really enjoy the operating the trains and switching and uncoupling and planning out the moves and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to cut from here and I'm going to show you the video that I shot of a train that started this whole video. This is a northbound Norfolk Southern train. It's getting ready to cross the underpass on 7th Street. I'm actually standing on Red Street, which is on the opposite side of the tracks from where I grew up and where my mother lived. Jesse Diamond, but you can't see it now. This is a good place to rail fan because there's signals facing both directions, so you can see where the train comes. This is the end of the train. I actually went under the underpass. I'm standing on my old safety patrol corner when I was in elementary school. Saw a lot of trains standing on this corner. Corner 7th and Sugar Street, Chillicothe, Ohio. So the houses I'm going to show you were N&W company houses. A little rundown now. So this first house on the corner, my mother lived in the gray house. That was N&W company house, and this house on the corner and the house next to it were also company house. Well, that's it. My next video will be about the lighting I'm installing on my N-scale layout. I was going to show a little bit of a preview today, but I think I'll just wait and do it for the next time. So everybody has a train story. I'd love to hear about yours, how you got interested in trains. You know, my dad built airplanes. I built airplanes as a kid too, but trains always fascinated me more. He used to sort of tease me about it. And I'd say, well, yeah, well, none of my trains have ever flown off into the distance and crashed into somebody's window, and I had to pay for it. But he encouraged my hobby anyhow. So everybody stay safe, stay dry. If you're in the southeastern United States this weekend, it's going to get a lot of rain. So I'll see you soon.